Hi there, so this time I decided to compare using Odoo or using Vue Storefront on the same machine to understand the difference in terms of workload. Of course, that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is that you have two decoupled systems, and decoupling the e-commerce from the ERP would allow you to focus on having the, let's say, the server optimized for serving a web load and not serving an ERP load, which is very different in one way. In the other way, of course, is the headless advantage. You can have your website being served with a mainstream technology like Vue, Nuxt, right? And then have your Odoo developers on different side. So that there are lots of other advantages related with the headless. I'm not going through all of them now, but I'll just show you what I have here. So I'm using this same server. It's called Asterix. And if I show you, I have some script that is going to change from Odoo to Vue Storefront and from Vue Storefront to Odoo. So when I activate Vue Storefront, I will start Vue Storefront, stop Odoo, stop Postgres, and start Redis. And I already have a very optimized scenario for Nginx with caching both for Odoo and for also Vue Storefront, because it's intended that they should use a content delivery network. And I'm doing this test over a Gigabyte network local, so I had to use some caching strategy to avoid using a CDN, which I cannot since I'm local, right? I try to keep things as close as possible in terms of having the same advantages for both systems. So you'll see I have here 16 core machine with 32 gigabytes of RAM, and for Odoo I did use let's see, I did use 33 workers, which is twice 16 plus 1. This is the recommended setup. I did test it with more and less workers, and really this was the best option, let's say. I'm using XSL, which is a new feature for Odoo 16, which is really something great because it avoids serving some assets from Odoo server. It's just going to bypass from Nginx directly to the file store. That's going to free up Odoo for doing more requests. And so I activated, I made sure it's working. On the Vue Storefront side, I just using PM2. PM2, it's a process manager, and the setting that I have there, it's set to max, but is just using the number of cores, 16 minus 1. That's how the PM2 max works. It just calculates using that, right? And so I have the code, same code here on the same server for Vue Storefront. I'm going to use Redis, and I'm going to use a second server that is going to get information from, which is this one, Odoo Perf. This is an 8-core, 16 gigabyte laptop. Really, it's connected through a cable to the same router. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't need to be a big server because Vue Storefront is just going to connect to get the information into Redis the first time. Then it's just going to serve requests. So let's get started. On the other side, I'm connecting to this port Odoo Locust. I'm using Locust in a different server, and if I cat Locust Odoo, you'll see we are going to hit the home page. Then we're going to hit the 2 category pages and 2 product pages. And on the Vue Storefront, it's just the same thing with the same categories. They have the exact same amount of products, just in Vue Storefront, right? So first one is Odoo, and let's run Locust. And so we are just going to open this on my local here. I already did a couple of testings, and so I know the optimal setup for Odoo. It's 800 users, but I'll show you why we cannot go much beyond that. I'm going to use the IP instead of, just to not consider DNS calls over there. But now if I go into charts, it's growing into the 800 users. And these are here the response times. They start big when we do these changes, and then they stabilize a bit lower. So 800 users was here, and now it's stabilizing the response times. We are doing 260 requests per second, which is very good, just with the web load. I also optimized Postgres, and another interesting thing would be going here and checking the load, htop, and you see the load is growing, and right now we have a load average of 12, but it's going to grow steadily as the workers require a bit more memory, and so the load also comes up. So we have 3.5 gigabytes being used now, and after 5 minutes it's going to increase a bit, but that's okay. You see here almost, let's say, after 5 minutes in my previous testing, I went into the 90%. Here is performing a bit more, probably because I improved the load. I use pgtune, but could also be because it's starting. Yeah, I did 5 minutes before. Here it's still starting, so it's the load average is going, it's growing still. Yeah, so if you see now we have this 50th percentile and 95th percentile of the requests are the 51 milliseconds and the 120. Still good, still a good response time. It's not something that's going to be a problem for your users. The website, it's serving quite nice, and even we are with a big load. Not this one, asterisk, right? And so if we go here, you'll see why not more than 800. I'll show you why. I tried with 1000, and if I do like this, it's going to grow. It still grows in terms of requests per second, but the response times, they will have a peak now, but they are going to lower into a higher level. And so these response times are a bit too much. Like seeing it's going in the middle of these two curves is an overshot, but should be like half a second probably. And yeah, that's already a bit too much. But we are doing almost 300 requests per second. I mean, it's still possible, but yeah, we feel now a bit slower. I'm on the same local network, right? If it was, yeah, we feel the response being a bit slower, but it's great. And Odoo 16 surely makes a much better job, because now QWeb has caching system, but of course it's connecting to database, and if we tail the log, we'll see it's moving there, right? So this is the load now, it's 29, immediately here it's 16. So if I just do tail, yeah, that's the access log. It's crazy, right? Because it's being hammered. If I do Odoo, who do I have it on syslog? So it's constantly replying to the requests, obviously. And of course it can use cache here, right? But well, this is Odoo. Now let's switch into Vue Storefront. Let's just memorize that 260 was the ideal in my perspective, because we are on the 50 and the 95 percentile. 66, 170, it's a good response time. Now let's stop. Let's switch over to Vue Storefront here. So activate Vue Storefront. It's going to disable everything. Here I'm going to stop, and this is the Odoo perf. If I I'll tail the access log here. You see some requests from my last test probably. So also here I'll just do a flush all on Redis cache. So if I do Redis clean and I do keys, I don't have anything right now. It's going to fill the cache when it starts, and it's going to ask that if I do here arcat, not this one, yeah, it's here. You see, it's going to request that data from the products to Odoo perf, which is this server we have here, 8-core server, just the same data. And this server, we are tailing it here. Of course, here we disable this. If I do this, it's going to show up Vue Storefront in a minute. And okay. Oh, it's showing now. Okay. Oh, man is still warming up, right? And if we go here, we'll see it's, yeah, it requests first, and then it's not going to, if I do this like this to show you, so like this, and I should request man, it's hitting here, and if I go back to woman, it stops because he already has the data inside Redis. So if I go here and I ask Redis flee again, there you go, it's loaded those keys. So on the locus side, we are just going to use the Vue Storefront file, hitting the same things, and closing this one. Or maybe I can, no, I'll close this one. I can keep it open, let's see. Okay, can keep it open. And I'll say I want 180, no, it's not here, because I already did some testing, and 180, 1800, it's the ideal. More than that, it's going to degrade too much. I'll start swarming, and you see here, it still fetched something, but not moving a lot, right? And we are generating lots of load, and right now we are serving 300, 400 requests per second. Do was 260 ideal. Here this one is just going up without any problem. And yeah, I told you we are using PM2 process manager, using 15 workers here, and well, response times are 9/19, and we're doing 600, roughly 600 requests per second. And if I just use here htop, well, if I do keys, you see now I have a bit more. So if I use htop here, you see the load is not as big as using Odoo. Probably simpler requests, they're just getting data from Redis faster. And yeah, this is using PM1 machine. Of course, ideal scenario would be using Kubernetes here, scaling easily, Vue Storefront, and Odoo being on its own platform. You don't need to be on a big machine, just depends on how much ERP users you need, right? This is just for web users, and yeah, much steadier. Now one interesting thing to do, yeah, if I try to raise here also, I'm at 180, I try 2000, let's try 2000, and I try spawn rate, something, doesn't matter, it's going to raise, and here you'll see we see it's degrading a bit, the response times, and that's why I think the 1800 it's the ideal. right? Yeah, it's doing some. Yeah, you see it's not so stable as it was. We have some errors occurring here, 0.4 per second. It's not problematic, but yeah, it's getting non-ideal, let's say. I'll just open here, I'll go back to 1800, which is the ideal, and now it's coming down. And we can also see another interesting thing, which is cleaning the cache. So if we clean the cache, what's going to happen? So on Odoo Perth, I'm just going to do clean up. Let's see, clean up and tail again. So we have this alpha page, and here I'm just using the flush. I have a flush all. You see, this is how we're going here. So if I flush the cache, as soon as I do it, okay, he's connecting to Odoo, and you see the requests here, getting back the data from the products, and now it's going down again. The response time, first request you went to Odoo, and then it starts just serving directly from Redis. If we go here and we just do Redis clean, and we do query for the keys, there they are again. Of course, we will have much more in a real scenario, because here we are just hitting on 2 category pages and 2 product pages, but it's just a comparison, right? And yeah, as I said, the best thing about using Vue Storefront with Odoo is really the possibility of decoupling the web load from the ERP load. They are different, fundamentally different, right? And you also can scale much easier using Redis and just getting data depending on how much your products change. You can just, when you change some product, connect to Vue Storefront and just invalidate one key. You don't need to invalidate them all like I did here, or 2 or 3. And so you can also use timeouts for doing that. There's lots of possibilities of invalidating the cache. And yeah, that's all I wanted to show you today. Thanks. Have a great one. Bye bye.